Hey folks, welcome to the show. This is my first time reviewing something kind of live. Uh, there's a lot of good things that happened today in hockey. Josh Stone scored 2 goals in his debut with his hometown team, son of Shane Doan, legendary Coyotes player. Oilers won. I mean, I think Jets fans aren't seeing that too well. I was kind of disappointed in the Vegas loss, but as an Oilers fan, I was kind of like happy, and it was impressive to see the Preds rally from such a big deficit. You know, there was lots of crazy hockey news. The craziest comes from this video that's gone viral. I'm going to have to redo it. This is Andrew Berkshire. Now, I don't believe in attacking him as a person. Don't go harassing him or any of that stuff. That wouldn't be cool or any of that. Like, don't be a jerk. But it is important to attack opinions. Again, I'm not here to attack Andrew Berkshire. I've never met the person. Could be a really nice dude, but this is bad. This opinion is bad. It is actually the worst opinion in hockey that I've ever heard. I heard one a few months ago that maybe I can go over sometime. I thought that it couldn't get any worse than that. It did. So it talks a lot about Zach Hyman scoring 50 goals, and there's been lots of discussion over, you know, so what, least talented 50 goal scorer of all time, all that kind of stuff, which I think is very rude. I think that's very naive, but I understand where it's coming from. I don't I don't really understand where this guy's coming from. He adds a whole new angle to it that I don't think anybody. Well, there's a few supporters in his comment section actually believes that he's getting very much flamed across Instagram. The comments on his video is nearing the amount of likes he's received on it. His mentions, he's shut off his mentions on Instagram. Hopefully that's just people coming after his opinion and not him personally, but I am aware of how people can be, and I don't believe that. But at the same time, this opinion absolutely deserves to be flamed. He doesn't. Him as a person doesn't. I don't know if that's the case for any of that, but I don't want to sound like I'm supporting attacking him as a person. We're just here to attack his opinion that really shouldn't be spread. It's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. So let's talk about Hyman for a bit. So I was thinking about doing a video about Zach Hyman and his 50 goals, but I don't have access to all of his goals this year or any of that. And if I did, I'd get copyrighted. So I don't want to get into it too much. But the argument is, well, okay, he's not a sniper. He doesn't snipe all these goals. It's not super talented, and he's just feeding off of having McDavid and Dry in the power play, which isn't entirely false. But the best falsities come from something that has some truth to it. Yeah, Hyman is not the most talented 50 goal scorer to ever exist. Probably not. This is his first time hitting 50 goals in his career. He's 31 years old now, which is one of the oldest players to have their 50 goal, or the oldest a player's been for their first 50 goal year. I think it's top 3. I think it's third behind Joe Mullen and Johnny Busick. I think I nailed that. I'm pretty sure I memorized it correctly. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I usually am. Anyways, no, I should say I've had bad opinions. Everyone has bad opinions, but this is just bad. So anyway, I still want to talk about Hyman and the 50 goals. If you watch him, you know he works very hard. He's very smart. He knows where to be. He's tough on the puck. He knows how to get to it. He's better than a lot of players at getting to the puck, finding the puck, redirecting it, and putting it in. And he does have a very good shot. He has sniped before. He is a capable sniper. He's not a prototypical sniper, but he can absolutely snipe. He's been a real treat to have, and all that kind of stuff. But let's say everybody is right that he is a talentless goal scorer. He only gets 50 goals because of McDavid and Draisaitl. And yeah, I'd agree that McDavid and Draisaitl will have a lot to do with his 50 goals. And maybe I don't think he'd hit 50 without him, but he's still a very capable goal scorer in his own right. But again, let's say all that is true. Let's say worst case scenario, he hit 50 goals because of people around him, not because of him. But the important thing at the end of the day is the famous line. It doesn't matter how you get them, it matters how many. 50 tap-ins is better than 49 highlight reel goals, because 50 is better than 49. The highlight reel goals are absolutely more fun to watch and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, who scored 50? Now you could say, well, next year I wouldn't bet on the guy who scores 50 tap-ins versus the 49 highlight reel goals. Yeah, you're right. But this year alone, 50 is better than 49. That's basic math. So that is worst case scenario, is that Hyman has zero talent and just gets tap-ins, which isn't true. He does get a lot of tap-ins. His 50th goal was a tap-in, but his 51st tonight, which was his 200th goal of his career, the game winner, wasn't a tap-in. It was a good play, and in a way it was a tap-in, but it was more of a rebound that he created, and he elevated it. So I guess it was a little bit, but this guy adds a whole new angle to it that is just unbelievably bad. So let's get into it. I think I figured it out. Again, I've never done this before, but I know React content is popular. I know there's some legal questions about it as well. You're stealing other people's content. Not really. I don't think this is the case, in that I know it's important for me to add as much to it as I can. Transformative content. You have to transform it, right? If I was just showing his video on my channel, then yeah. Actually, before I get into it, I'm going to say this. Hyman has now spawned 2 of the worst takes in recent memory when it comes to hockey players. One I posted on YouTube, and I'm sure you've seen, is where Editor Leaf in Twitter, he calls the Hyman contract or I assume he calls the Hyman contract the worst contract possibly ever in NHL history, and that's obviously has been proven wrong. And now Hyman has spawned this one that is very bad. So, like I said, let's get into it. Hopefully, I think audio and everything works, or else I got to redo this whole take. But let's see.
This might make some people upset, but
That's okay.
me with the Zach Hyman story right now. Listen, I've been in the media industry since around 2012, maybe a little bit longer than that, but professionally since 2012. And frankly, it's not just about hockey. It's not just about sports. Our media industry has to do a better job of telling truthful stories.
Absolutely right. I think everybody can agree. Absolutely true in Canada. I think Andrew covers Montreal more, and it's true whether in Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver. It's more true, I would say, in Toronto, but it doesn't mean it's any less true in Edmonton and that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
All right. And listen, Zach Hyman scored 50 goals at age 31. Fantastic accomplishment. Incredible.
That's where it should end, because it is a fantastic accomplishment and it is incredible.
But the story that's being sold right now and repeated ad nauseum all over media is that
you should hope that he's just going to say it's all tap-ins. You should hope that's the opinion he has.
If you work hard, if you...
I should say right away, even though this is kind of react, I didn't watch the whole video. I got halfway through and I said, holy cow, I have to react to the rest of this. I'll stop where I ended.
Stick to it. You can get there too. 31-year-old guy finally hit the 50-goal mark. Hard worker, all that. Yeah, great. Except
it is great.
You're missing the part of the story.
It is great. He is a hard worker. You just have to watch him. That's all. It's really all of it. And it's obviously very endearing in Edmonton, where it is a blue-collar city. Ryan Smith was very widely praised. He never had a 100-point season. He was never top 10 in points, but he was widely beloved because he worked hard. And Zach Hyman, if you ask a lot of Oilers fans who watched Ryan Smith, they'll say, yeah, Zach Hyman reminds them of Ryan Smith. And it helps that Zach Hyman is just a really super nice guy.
Where Zach Hyman grew up insanely rich.
Why is that an issue? Like, you can be a hard worker and rich. In fact, most NHL players come from rich families and grow up rich, because it's a very expensive sport to get into. It's why I didn't get into ice hockey or ever tried professionally, because it was too expensive. So I was relegated to floor hockey, and that's not me bashing my parents or anything. I love my parents. I love my family and everything they've done for me. And I'm not the only story. A lot of people missed out because of how expensive it is. So yeah, I would imagine that hockey players are rich, or were coming into
where
the
his
league.
parents bought an entire league to guarantee him playing time, where he did exclusive training that only a rich person could perform, or sorry, that only a rich person could afford with, professional athletes his whole life.
This is where it stopped. And yeah, that is crazy that his parents bought him an entire league to guarantee him ice time. But let's finish this. Let's finish the video. See where he goes with it.
His whole life. This is a person who has had every single possible advantage to get where they are today. And by the way, on top,
I'm sure he's had some hardships in his life. I'm just going to say that before I say my whole thoughts. You don't know everything behind everything. I firmly don't believe anybody is just gifted everything. He was gifted quite a bit as he went over. I'm assuming everything Andrew has said is true. I haven't personally fact-checked it. I'm just going to assume it's correct. But yeah, let's just move on.
top of that, got extraordinarily lucky once making the league and has spent almost the entirety of his NHL career playing shotgun next to Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid. Objectively, inarguably, the two best players in the sport.
Year to year, sure, yeah, they are objectively, inarguably the two best. You could say right now, you could argue McKinnon or Kucherov right in there, but year to year you expect those two guys, so sure. And it is very lucky for Hyman to do that, to play alongside those two guys. But it's important to note that Matthews doesn't create a lot of goals for other players because he's so good at doing it himself. It's more of a Marner thing, so I don't think that's a great example. McDavid is one of those guys who makes everybody around him better. That's very true, and I'm sure playing next to Matthews and Marner certainly helps. So yeah, he's absolutely played a majority of the NHL career in minutes playing shotgun to those guys. But it's important to note that you aren't just put on line one. You aren't just put there. You have to. We'll let him finish.
Right now, for his whole career,
Maybe he'll salvage it before I go into this.
whole career. Now, none of that takes away the fact that he scored 50 goals. He scored 50 goals. It's not going away.
Yep.
Zach Hyman is a hard worker, right?
Good.
You can see it on the ice.
Yeah.
He goes into spots that are hard to get to, that you take a beating to get to.
Absolutely. That's important. I'm glad he admitted that. That's absolutely true.
Let's be real here. Hard work, stick-to-itiveness, that isn't the story.
It is.
The story is if you have that stuff and you have every possible opportunity, every possible lucky break, every possible financial consideration, then maybe your hard work will get you to where Zach Hyman got. It's not about just working hard. And this is not just hockey. It's not just sports. This is everything. Working hard, everybody works hard. You think every NHL...
Not everybody works hard. I've met rich people who are lazier than a sack of potatoes, and I've met poor people who are lazier than a sack of potatoes. Don't say everybody works hard, because there's a lot of people who don't.
Scheller didn't get there by working hard. You think every NBA player didn't get there by working hard? Talent, of course. But you can't have elite talent without working hard, at least in some way. Not all of them will work hard the same way. But Zach Hyman, let's be real here, is a hard-working player, hard-nosed player, who goes to one space on the ice, for the most part offensively, and he contributes in one space.
I wouldn't say for the most part offensively. Depends on how loose you are, because most means anywhere above 50%. Does he play over half of his ice time offensively? Yep. So, yes, it's true, but, he might be allowing some thoughts, because you got to be careful with media, especially Canadian media and Canadian fans. As he pointed out at the beginning, is most can allow people to believe, oh, he's playing 75%, 60, 80% of his time offensively. Not true. His defensive play isn't too noticeable, but you do notice his forecheck quite well. Most notably, I would say his forecheck is his best feature when it comes to defense. So it's capable there. He's not a penalty killer by any means, or a Selke guy by any means, but he works hard for it.
specific way. That specific way at the net front happens to mesh extremely well with hyper elite generational players to become a complementary piece
Yeah.
on a top line. He's not a guy that drives a line. He's not a
He drives the line. Obviously, you're not going to drive the line when you have McDavid or Draisaitl who's going to drive it for you. But he can drive a line. I've seen it. He's not the best guy to drive a line because you'd rather have somebody who's a playmaker do it. But he can drive the line if you need him to.
50-goal scorer in the same way that a guy like Austin Matthews is a 50-goal scorer. He's a 50-goal scorer.
Is that because Matthews has more? I mean, I mentioned if they both have 50, who cares? I guess you can go with the guy who played less games, but who cares how you get it? It's about how many. Let's hope he says it, because that's a very important part. He gets so close. He goes against his own opinions when he talks about Hyman as a hard worker. So are you saying that it sounds like at one point he says, I'm not, good on Hyman and all that. I'm not trying to crap on him because he scored 50 goals and he's a hard worker. And then he goes into, he's not a hard worker and doesn't deserve 50 goals because he was gifted it all. Pick a lane, buddy.
Or in the right situation with the right line mates. Not everybody who is Zach Hyman's talent could fold himself into that role and execute it as well as Zach Hyman does, and he absolutely deserves credit for that.
Yay! Yay! He said it. He said it. Don't go back on it like you already have. Please don't do that, because you see he's not even trusting his own opinion because he's gone back on it so many times. He said I think 2 or 3 times now where he says he deserves credit for 50 goals. He deserves credit for 50 goals. So leave it at that. Just leave it there. That's fine. Yeah, great. Don't bring in the fact that he's rich or has had these opportunities. I'm happy for him. I absolutely wish I had those opportunities. I'm sure most people in the world wish they had those opportunities, but we don't. So let's be happy that he does and that he's making the most out of it. What I want to talk about when he brought out his rich parents is, I'm not surprised that he had rich parents. I'm a little surprised that his parents, allegedly, because I'd never back-checked it, but I'm assuming it's true, bought an entire league to quote-unquote ensure his ice time. Let's say, worst case scenario, that's absolutely right. There's a lot of nepotism that Hyman was basically bought into hockey. Maybe. And that's a lot more than almost anybody would get. But he made the most of his opportunities. He didn't waste the opportunities his parents gave or sacrificed him. He took every opportunity his parents gifted him and made the most of it to become who he is. And you'd think a guy who is supposedly super rich is soft and not a hard worker and probably pretty prideful. Hyman is the most humble guy I've ever seen in an interview. If you watch the Edmonton Oilers YouTube channel where they have Hyman mic'd up for the 50 goals, he's just, he's laughing and he's enjoying it. But most of the time he's saying thank you to everybody because Draisaitl is more excited for Hyman than Hyman is, and I think that's more telling of Draisaitl's personality than Hyman's. But he's very humble and he spent the whole time just saying thank you to his teammates instead of saying, "Woo, I'm awesome." He's like, "Thank you guys, thank you, because he's super humble.
But let's not build this stupid narrative of work hard, you'll succeed. It's just not true. It's just not true.
It is. It absolutely is. There's a very famous player in the NHL. I hope Andrew Berkshire has heard of him because he follows Montreal Canadiens, so I'm sure he's heard of this guy's name. His name is Artemi Panarin. He came from Russia and grew up at a time when Russia was extraordinarily poor and really, really poor. There's a story I've heard of him not using actual skates to learn to skate. He had to attach blades to like his grandpa's boots or something. It was terrible circumstances he grew up in relative to what a lot of North American hockey players, especially Zach Hyman, go through. But do you know what happened? Artemi Panarin worked hard. He not only made himself a professional hockey player, he not only made himself an NHLer, but he made himself one of the best NHLers in the world. And he worked hard without the same gifts that the vast majority of North American hockey players get. And he's not the only story like that. This is the one that comes to mind because he's the most recent and a very famous example. But there are lots of examples of poor hockey players who are able to get in because they've worked hard. It usually has to do with their parents. Their parents usually have to do a lot of the working hard because it's not like you can go get a job when you're 6. So full credit to the parents and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Maybe we should change it to players can only, or kids can have to work at 6, so we can find out if they're good enough for hockey, and then they can have their own money because they can't. We're not allowed to have inheritance. I don't know. Maybe that's a better idea. I'm sure that's not what Andrew's saying, but what is he getting at? What does he want to change? Just that we can't talk about Hyman having 50 goals? We can't? Okay, ban everybody who says Hyman has 50 goals because it doesn't matter because he's rich and it was gifted to him. Who freaking cares? He put the puck in the net 50 times. He did it more because, 1, he had 51 tonight, and 2, because he gets a lot called back because he's so working hard from that. As he points out, he admits it like 2 or 3 times that Hyman is a hard worker and he deserves all the credit. And then he goes back around and says, but let's not forget that he's not a hard worker and that he doesn't deserve 50 goals. He's only there because Draisaitl, McDavid, and Austin Matthews were his line mates. Do you know how a guy gets to the first line? It's not because he's gifted. I assure you, Gary Bettman is not best friends with Zach Hyman or his childhood friend of Zach Hyman. I mean, maybe they're best friends because Hyman's just a really nice guy. But, I don't think Gary Bettman's calling Toronto and Edmonton and say, hey, Zach Hyman has to be a line 1 player because so-and-so or else we're shutting down your team. 1, because he doesn't have the power to do that. Even though he's the commissioner of the league, he's not the leader. The owners are collectively, and he just represents the collective owners. So he wouldn't be able to do that. So maybe, let's see another scenario. How does he get to the top line without working hard, working his way up to? Because that's how everybody else gets it. They get up there because they have the talent and they work hard. So either Hyman doesn't have the talent and works super hard, or he does have the talent and doesn't work hard. I think it's both, more on the work hard side because his talent isn't as notable as other line 1 players, especially when you compare it to McDavid and Draisaitl. But still, it's still very talented. He's in the NHL. Andrew and I, and most of you guys at home, I assume, aren't. So, he's got some talent and he's worked his way up to a line 1 role. He wasn't there because Matthews said, hey, this guy needs to be line 1. He wasn't there because McDavid said, hey, this guy has to be line 1. In fact, Hyman's been line 2. Tonight, he was line 2. Warren Foegele replaced him because Hyman's better at driving a line with Nugent than Foegele is. With all due respect to Foegele, I like Foegele a lot. But, it's so let's say he got gifted this line 1 opportunity, as Andrew seems to be alluding. Does that mean he's paying off every single coach? That's a lot of coaches to pay off. I'd imagine coaches would demand to be paid off every single game. And maybe every single media conference. That's a lot of money. That's okay, let's say, Hyman is in bed with the Rothschilds. We got it. That's why he's line 1. Good job, Andrew. This is what we need the Canadian media for.
There are people who've worked as hard as Zach Hyman their entire lives and never got a sniff of the American Hockey League, let alone...
That's absolutely true, because you need talent, too. And how are we defining hard work? I assume we're just talking about hockey. I assume. But I feel like he's allowing a lot of non-hockey related subjects to leak into his argument here when it comes to, the rich versus poor argument, who really works hard, all that kind of stuff. That's political. I don't care about that for this channel. I'm not going to comment on that. I think he might be leaking a little bit in, maybe not.
Alone the NHL because they didn't have the advantages that he had, or some...
I mentioned that most players need those advantages because they can't get a job when they're 6, because most players begin their NHL future when they're 12, if not younger, because they have to play hockey as a kid. And in Canada, at least, you're in a junior league by high school, and then you're drafted by 18. So obviously these guys, you need a lot of money um, before you can even work, really, because you have to have the equipment and the skill to even get into that league, the junior leagues. That's just in Canada. It's different for other countries. U.S. is kind of similar. Russia, depending on what timeline you're talking about, but yeah, obviously you have to get money, and then Hyman's not the only guy who has a lot of money behind him. I'm not sure how many players had their parents buy themselves a league, but you know, it's still a lot of money, and he made the most of it, obviously, because he's in the NHL, and he hasn't let any of that money go to his head, and he works hard. He's not like, great, I did it, I'm in the NHL. He didn't stop there. He didn't stop when he got top line minutes and worked with Matthews and Marner. He still worked hard to get better and better. And he didn't stop when he got his big contract and moved to Edmonton, where he said he wanted to raise his kids, and when he got top line minutes with McDavid. He didn't stop there. He got better and better. He keeps getting better every year. And this is absolutely his best year. Not only statistically wise, which is more important than talent wise, but talent wise, I think he's better this year than he's ever been, at least from what I've seen from him. But obviously, statistically, it's his best year because he has 51 goals, which, as Andrew keeps saying, but at the same time doesn't want to admit, 50 goals is 50 goals.
Something went wrong in their career that didn't go wrong for his. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure something went wrong in Hyman's career. You can make a joke, well, he had to play for Toronto, and that's something wrong. But hey, he's from Toronto. I'm sure he enjoyed it. But it's like he hasn't won a Stanley Cup yet. Yeah, and that's kind of like where we talk about go wrong. Again, stuff has gone wrong in Hyman's career. He's been hurt, and that's not as wrong as other people have. People have career-ending injuries before they're even in the NHL. Yeah, well, that sucks, but that's life. That's life. We can't just have a do-over and say, hey, Gretzky, your 200 goals didn't count because not everybody had the same chance as you to be super talented and work super hard and all that kind of stuff. Because, hey, Teddy over here, he was injured. He got a back injury when he was 6 and never had a chance to play hockey. So your 215 points in the 80s does not count. Sorry, Gretzky. That's just how life is now, Andrew said.
Yes, congratulations to Zach Hyman on your 50
Oh, he said
goals,
it again.
But
Congratulations, 50 goals. Leave it at that. Leave it at that. Just leave it.
I'm sorry, the narrative you're selling and that the media is selling around it, miss me with that. It's bullshit.
Look, I'm from Alberta. I do a lot of road tripping. I've been on farms and ranches. I can smell BS. I'm familiar with this smell. And the smell isn't coming from Hyman and the smell does come from the media a lot, but not about Hyman hard work. It's from Andrew and this opinion. Again, I'm not attacking his personal. I've never met the guy. Maybe Andrew's like one of the nicest guys ever. I've never met him. But this opinion, that is what's truly BS. It's just completely dismisses the fact that Hyman has 50 goals, that he's worked hard to get into the league, to be here. A lot of things have to go right for any NHL player, not just Zach Hyman, or for any player to get into the AHL. There, any professional league, a lot of things have to go right to be able to get into the league in your life. And a lot of things did for Hyman. And I wish that a lot of things went right for me, but they didn't. And that's okay. I could get into a little religious philosophy about that and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not in the league. Hyman is. I'm happy for him, not just because he's an Oilers fan. Hey, or not because I'm an Oilers fan. I mean, I'll say it about. I was going to say Velarde, but he's on the Jets. That wasn't meant to be a joke at the Kings. Mikey Anderson, Brad Marchand. I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy that they got to be other. Even though I've hated them at points, I'm happy for them that they were able to make the most of it. I absolutely wish I was able to do it instead, but that's just not how God intended it for me. That's not how life worked out. And maybe that's a cop-out on my part. Maybe God's not real and all that kind of stuff, but whatever. Who cares? At that point, am I supposed to protest and tell Trudeau and Biden and all the world leaders and say, life's not fair because I didn't get to make the NHL? Are they going to make it fair? No, nobody's going to make it fair. So at the end of the day, what are you complaining about? Are you complaining that Hyman grew up rich and all that kind of stuff? Good for him. If it's jealousy, if jealousy is your issue, that's fine. A lot of people struggle with that. I'm fortunate enough to for that to not be one of my major issues. I do have jealousy. I'm not like immune to it, but like it doesn't affect me as much as others. So, and I'm lucky for that. I recognize that a lot of people do, and so I'm not going to minimize jealousy. But at the end of the day, it still is that what it is? Are you just jealous that he had these opportunities? Because there's a lot of people who wish they had these opportunities, like myself, and want to be heard. They want to be heard about we never had these opportunities. And the NHL is still trying to get there slowly. It's a pretty hard issue to tackle, to just come up with money and all that kind of stuff. But this isn't how you do it. This isn't. Let's tear down Zach Hyman, who, again, is, as far as I'm concerned, the nicest, most humble guy I've seen in the NHL. Let's tear him down because he sucks and he's rich. But 50 goals, 50 goals. Just leave it at that, Andrew. That's all you have to do. Leave it at 50 goals because it doesn't matter how you get them. It matters how many. I don't care that Hyman was super rich and had all these things that I didn't. I don't care about any of that. I'm happy for him because I know he's worked hard and I see it. I absolutely see it. Everybody who's met him, if they ask, what's Hyman like, they always say he's hard nosed. Not just because he has a massive nose, but because he works hard. He's got a nose for the net, as my dad said, which might have been a joke about his nose. It actually was. But so what? He's a great player. Everybody wants to meet him and be his friend because, one, he's talented and makes all the money, but two, because he's nice about it. So at the end of the day, I'm not the only person saying this. This opinion smells just as bad as the manure that I have to drive through when I go between Southern Alberta and Spruce Grove. Actually, it smells worse because I'm used to the manure because I know the manure is doing good. This opinion isn't doing any good. At best, this opinion is shining a light on all the people who weren't able to make the league because they had misfortunes and stuff. At best, but that's not what he's doing. He's tearing down Zach Hyman for it. That's not right. That's not fair, and that's not good to Hyman. I'm sure Hyman wouldn't take it personally or any of that. And Andrew's going to say, "Well, I didn't mean to personally attack Hyman," but you did. You did. You absolutely discredited it. It's like going. He says 3 or 4 times, as I've mentioned, 3 or 4 times myself. He deserves credit for 50 goals, 50 goals, 50 goals. Yep. But then he goes right around and discredits the fact that Hyman has 50 goals. So should we just not talk about it? As I said, okay, then we should talk about it. Maybe he's jealous that Montreal, which I assume is his favorite team because that was on his bio, hasn't had a 50-goal scorer in forever. I mean, there's a lot to be proud about as a Habs fan. Yeah, I don't know his age, but I'm sure he's lived through more Habs success than I have, or success. So there is really no defense for this. He can talk all they want how he says, "Well, I'm not discrediting you, Hyman," or any of that, but you are. You absolutely are. You discredited Hyman. You could pretend you're not. I think Andrew's pretending he's not discrediting Hyman, but he is. He absolutely is, and that's the end. So this video frustrated me and a lot of people, Oilers fans are not. I know Flames fans who are just disgusted. Puck Empire is a major news page on Instagram who is similarly just bewildered, flabbergasted, one might say, about this opinion. It just reeks, man. At best, where did this come from, Andrew? Did you just want to get clicks? That obviously backfired because he shut down his mentions on Instagram. Did he just want to have some kind of surreal headline to get more attention or some of that? Because that works for some people, but I went too far because once again, the amount of comments you get are similar to the amount of likes you're getting, so that obviously didn't work because it's a trash opinion. And we all have trash opinions here and there. And I don't want to sound like I'm coming after Andrew personally. Again, he could be the nicest guy I've never met. It's possible. that doesn't make him immune, or anybody immune, from having a trash opinion. And unfortunately for Andrew, he put it out for the world to see. And the world did see it. And the world wished we never did. It sucked. It really, really sucked. And it was really rude, frankly, I think. But, I don't know, whatever. What's said is said. We can all move on and all that stuff. And again, don't go harass Andrew. You can harass his opinion. That's fine. Don't harass him as a person. Harass is wrong. Don't harass his opinion. You know, what I meant is like, you know, you can challenge his opinion, as I'm doing, as many people are doing. Don't go after him as a person. That's just rude and doesn't make you the better person at any rate. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm probably going to say something more before I even end the video, and it's probably a repeat of what I said because I do that. I get it from my mom. Love you, Mom, but you reword things to make sure the point gets across. But I think it's across, and if not, you've probably got it yourself. So many people have talked about it. I've heard that Twitter or X is just flaming the guy, which, yeah, they tend to do, whether your opinion's right or wrong, they'll do that. I don't have that app. I just have Instagram. I think I have Facebook, but I don't use it. Anyways, that's it for tonight. This video, my first ever React video. Hopefully you liked this and appreciated this. And I don't want to end on like negative feelings or any of that. You know, I like to keep it positive. And the positive is that there's always going to be naysayers about anything, really. Even something as simple as Hyman scoring 50 goals. But at the end of the day, you get to choose how you feel. Naturally, you're probably, like me, going to be just bewildered and angry about this opinion that Andrew shared. But you can also, at the end of the day, you can control how you feel. You can say, hey, he had an opinion. It was pretty bad. We've all had bad opinions, as I've said. Unfortunately for Andrew, he put it out on the internet. As I'm doing, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before I put out a bad opinion on the internet. And if not, I probably already have, if you want to dig through deep enough into some of the stuff I've said online. But, you know, on this, you probably don't need to. I'll probably say something dumb on the channel, if not already. But, you know, have a good day. Good night, wherever you're at. I'm at 12:43 a.m., so it's bedtime for me. And I hope you have a great, wonderful rest of... I already said that part. I already said good night. You don't get it a second time. That's it. Please like and subscribe if you think you've... or not, if you think I've earned it. Tripping over my words, I apologize. Comment your thoughts on Andrew, myself, or any of that. I'm happy to hear and talk and all that kind of stuff. Or read, not necessarily hear. And please consider subscribing or turning on... No, you can't do just notifications. Subscribe. I'm too lazy to do edits. You get my authentic self. Subscribe, turn on notifications. I would appreciate that a ton. You'd see my videos sooner, which I think is a good deal, but, you know, up to you. At the end of the day, it's up to you. And so that's it. Again, thanks again, and I'll see you when I see you.